I was 67 years old the day I bought a ticket to Manila. Even now, saying those words out loud sounds a little ridiculous. Not because I was adventurous, not because I'd spent my life traveling the world. Quite the opposite. For more than 40 years, my life had been predictable, comfortable, safe. The kind of life most people spend years trying to build. And for a very long time, I was grateful for it. Then my husband died. After 42 years of marriage, I found myself sitting alone in a house that suddenly felt much larger than it used to. The silence was the hardest part. Not at first. At first there were phone calls, visits, neighbors checking in, my children calling every day. But life has a way of continuing. People return to work. Grandchildren have soccer games. Birthdays come and go. And eventually everyone settles back into their own routines. I don't blame them. That's how life works. The problem was that I no longer knew what my routine was supposed to be. Every morning looked exactly like the one before it. Coffee for one, a quiet house, another day to fill. Months turned into years. And somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like I was living. I was simply existing. Then one evening, completely by accident, I watched a video about Manila. I can't even tell you why I clicked on it. I had never been to the Philippines. I didn't know anyone there. I couldn't have pointed to Manila on a map 10 years earlier. But for some reason, I watched the entire thing. Then I watched another and another. 3 months later, I was standing in an airport with 2 suitcases and a round-trip ticket to the Philippines. My return flight was scheduled for 30 days later. The airline was happy. Immigration would be happy. My children were happy because they believed I was taking a long vacation. The truth was a little more complicated. I honestly didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was that if I stayed where I was, the next 5 years would look exactly like the last 5. And that scared me more than flying halfway around the world by myself. What happened after I landed in Manila scared me too, just not for the reasons I expected. The first thing I noticed was the heat. Not the kind of heat I was used to back home. This felt different, heavy, like stepping into a warm blanket that somebody had forgotten to remove from the dryer. I remember leaving the airport and immediately wondering why I was sweating before I'd even reached the car. The second thing I noticed was the traffic. I had seen videos. Everyone talks about Manila traffic. I thought I understood. I didn't. At one point I looked out the window and realized we had barely moved in 15 minutes. Motorcycles slipped between vehicles with inches to spare. Jeepneys stopped seemingly wherever they felt like stopping. Cars squeezed into spaces that didn't appear to exist. Horns sounded from every direction. My driver didn't seem bothered by any of it. I, on the other hand, was gripping my purse like we were entering a combat zone. The hotel I'd booked was in Makati. Nothing fancy. Just a clean room I could afford for a month while I figured things out. By the time I checked in, I was exhausted. The flight, the airport, the traffic, the realization that I was now 8,000 miles from everyone I knew. I took my suitcase into the room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bed. For a few minutes, I just stared at the wall. No television, no music, no distractions, just me. And for the first time since leaving home, the excitement disappeared. In its place came a different feeling. Doubt. The kind that creeps in quietly. The kind that starts asking questions. What are you doing here? Why did you think this was a good idea? Have you completely lost your mind? I wish I could tell you I felt brave. I didn't. I felt old. Very old. And very far from home. That first evening, I almost changed my return flight. Not joking. I actually opened the airline website. I remember sitting there with my laptop, looking at earlier departure dates. 3 weeks, 2 weeks, maybe even next week. Nobody would blame me. My children would probably be relieved. I could go home, tell everyone I had tried something different, and quietly return to the life I already understood. Instead, I made a deal with myself. Just 1 week, stay 1 week. If I still hated it after 7 days, I could leave without feeling guilty. It was a simple promise, a small promise. And it turned out to be one of the most important decisions I ever made. Because the very next morning, something happened that I never saw coming. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Some habits never leave you. For years, I'd been an early riser. Even retirement hadn't changed that. For a moment, lying there in that unfamiliar hotel room, I forgot where I was. Then I heard the city, the distant sound of traffic, a motorcycle somewhere below, voices drifting up from the street, and suddenly I remembered. Manila. I was actually in Manila. The thought made my stomach tighten all over again. Around 6 o'clock, I decided sitting in the hotel wasn't helping. I put on a pair of walking shoes and headed downstairs. No destination, no plan. I just wanted air. The city was already awake. Street vendors were setting up. Security guards stood outside office buildings. People were buying breakfast from carts parked along the sidewalks. Everyone seemed to have somewhere to be. Everyone except me. I walked for nearly 20 minutes before realizing I was completely lost. Not dangerously lost, just lost enough that I had no idea which direction my hotel was. I stopped on a corner and pulled out my phone. The map loaded, then froze, then disappeared. I remember standing there thinking that this was exactly the kind of thing my children had worried about. Their mother wandering around a city of millions with no clue where she was. That's when I noticed the little coffee shop. It wasn't a Starbucks. It wasn't anything I'd ever heard of. Just a small place tucked between two larger buildings. A few plastic tables. A glass display filled with pastries. Cold air spilling out from the doorway. At that point, I would have walked into almost anywhere, mostly because it had air conditioning. I ordered coffee, or at least I tried to. The young woman behind the counter smiled and patiently helped me through the process. When she heard my accent, she asked where I was from. A simple question, nothing unusual, but it led to a conversation. Then another employee joined in. Then a customer sitting nearby started asking questions. Before I knew it, I'd been sitting there nearly an hour, talking, laughing, telling complete strangers why a 67-year-old widow had suddenly decided to fly halfway around the world. What struck me wasn't that people were talking to me. It was how easy it felt. Back home, entire weeks could pass without a conversation lasting more than a few minutes. A cashier, a neighbor, a doctor's receptionist. Most interactions felt rushed, transactional, everyone busy, everyone moving. Here, nobody seemed in a hurry to end the conversation. I couldn't explain it. I still can't completely explain it. But when I finally stood up to leave, something felt different. The city hadn't changed. The traffic was still outside. The heat was still there. I was still thousands of miles from home. But for the first time since landing, Manila felt a little less intimidating, a little less foreign, a little more human. That afternoon, I walked farther than I had planned. The afternoon after that, I did it again. And by the end of my first week, something unexpected had happened. I wasn't counting the days until my flight home anymore. In fact, I had started looking for reasons to stay longer. What I didn't realize was that Manila was only beginning to reveal itself. And the place that changed everything wasn't in Makati at all. The place that changed everything turned out to be a church basement. Which is funny because I wasn't particularly religious. I still wouldn't describe myself that way. But on my second weekend in Manila, I noticed a flyer posted near the coffee shop. It advertised an English conversation group, free, every Saturday morning, open to anyone. At first, I walked right past it, then I stopped, turned around, and took a picture. The meeting was held in a community room underneath a church in Makati. Nothing fancy. Plastic chairs, a few folding tables, a ceiling fan working harder than anything else in the building. When I arrived, I almost left. There were already 20 people there, college students, young professionals, a few older adults. Everyone chatting comfortably while I stood near the doorway, wondering if I'd made another mistake. Then a woman walked over and introduced herself. Her name was Elena. She looked to be about my age, maybe a few years younger. She'd spent most of her life in Manila and volunteered with the group every weekend. Without making a fuss, she simply pulled a chair over and invited me to sit beside her. That small act of kindness ended up changing the course of my entire stay. For the next 2 hours, people practiced English. Some were excellent already. Others struggled. But what surprised me was how hard they worked. One young man carried a notebook filled with handwritten vocabulary words. A college student asked me to correct her pronunciation. Another participant wanted help preparing for a job interview. Nobody was there because they had to be. They were there because they wanted to improve their lives. There was something inspiring about that, something that reminded me of a younger version of myself, the version that still believed new chapters were possible. After the meeting ended, several people invited me to lunch. I assumed they were being polite. Back home, invitations like that often mean someday, not today. But they were already gathering their things and heading toward the door, so I followed. A few blocks later, we were sitting around 2 tables pushed together at a small restaurant. Someone ordered food for the group. Dishes started appearing faster than I could identify them. Rice, chicken, vegetables, fish, more rice. Apparently there is always more rice. Everyone laughed when I said that. I spent nearly 3 hours there, 3 hours talking to people I had met only that morning, listening to stories, learning about their families, their jobs, their goals, their frustrations. By the time we finally stood up to leave, I realized something that genuinely surprised me. I hadn't thought about going home once, not once. For several hours, the loneliness that had followed me across the Pacific Ocean had simply disappeared. Not because Manila had magically fixed my life, not because my grief was gone. It wasn't. Those things don't vanish. But for the first time in years, I felt connected to something larger than myself. And once you felt that after being alone for so long, it's very difficult to walk away from it. A few days later, I changed my return flight, not to leave sooner, to stay longer. 30 days became 60, then 90, and that's when my children started getting nervous, because for the first time they realized this might not be a vacation anymore. The first phone call with my daughter after changing the flight did not go particularly well. She tried very hard to sound supportive. I tried very hard to sound confident. Neither of us was especially convincing. When I told her I was extending my stay, there was a long silence, the kind family members use when they're carefully choosing their words. Finally, she asked a question I had been asking myself. "Mom, what exactly are you doing?" I wish I'd had a great answer, something wise, something inspiring. The truth was much less impressive. I didn't know. I just wasn't ready to leave. My son handled it differently. He listened, asked a few practical questions. Then he said something that stuck with me. Just make sure you're running towards something, not away from something. At the time, I wasn't sure which one I was doing. Maybe both. Grief has a way of blurring those lines. The longer I stayed in Manila, the more complicated my feelings became. Some days felt exciting. Other days felt overwhelming. There were mornings when I woke up convinced I was building a new life. There were afternoons when I wondered if I'd completely lost my mind. One week I'd be exploring neighborhoods I'd never seen before. The next week I'd be sitting in my apartment missing my family so much it physically hurt. Nobody talks about that part. People tell stories about moving abroad as if it's one decision. It isn't. It's dozens of decisions, hundreds of them, and many of those decisions happen after you've already arrived. One evening, about 2 months into my stay, I found myself walking through a neighborhood I'd never visited before. The sun was beginning to set. Children were playing basketball in the street. Someone was singing karaoke somewhere nearby. Not particularly well, but with tremendous confidence. I would eventually learn that confidence matters far more than talent when karaoke is involved. I smiled and kept walking. Then I noticed something. People were outside, not just passing through, not rushing somewhere, actually outside, talking, visiting, laughing, sharing food, sharing stories, sharing time. I stood there longer than I probably should have, because I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen anything like that back home. For years, most of my social interactions had required scheduling, text messages, calendar invites, plans made weeks in advance. Yet here, on a random Tuesday evening, people seemed perfectly comfortable simply existing together. No agenda, no event, no reason, just company. And as strange as it sounds, that observation affected me more than any tourist attraction ever could. I wasn't falling in love with Manila's skyline, or the shopping malls, or the weather. I was falling in love with the feeling that people still had time for each other. A few weeks later, Elena invited me to help with a weekend program for local students. Nothing formal, just conversation practice, reading, helping kids build confidence speaking English. I almost said no. Not because I didn't want to help, because I wasn't sure anyone actually needed me. That uncertainty followed me for years after my husband died. When you've spent decades being someone's partner, someone's parent, someone's caretaker, it's surprisingly difficult to figure out who you are when nobody needs anything from you anymore. I didn't realize it then. But that Saturday would become one of the most important days of my entire life, and it all started with a 12-year-old girl named Sofia. Sofia was 12 years old, quiet, serious, the kind of child who listens more than she speaks. The first time I met her, she sat in the back corner of the room with a notebook clutched against her chest like it contained state secrets. When it was her turn to read aloud, she barely raised her voice above a whisper. I could see she knew the answers. She just wasn't confident enough to share them. Something about that reminded me of myself, not at 12, at 67. Every Saturday, I kept showing up. At first, I told myself I was helping the students. The truth was they were helping me just as much, maybe more. For a few hours each week, I wasn't a widow. I wasn't a retiree trying to figure out what came next. I wasn't the woman who had flown across the world because she felt lost. I was simply Margaret, the volunteer, the teacher, the lady who corrected pronunciation and carried extra pencils in her bag. And it felt good, much better than I expected. Sofia started talking more, slowly at first, a sentence here, a question there. Then one Saturday she stayed behind after everyone else left. She wanted help preparing for a school presentation. We sat together for nearly an hour, practicing, repeating difficult words, working through her nervousness one step at a time. When she finally finished, she looked at me and smiled. A real smile. The kind that appears when somebody accomplishes something they genuinely didn't think they could do. I can't explain why that moment stayed with me, but it did. A few weeks later, Elena told me something I hadn't known. Sofia's father worked overseas. He'd been gone for years. Her mother worked long hours. Most days she spent more time helping raise her younger siblings than focusing on herself. Suddenly, a lot of things made sense. The seriousness, the responsibility, the way she always seemed older than her age, and I found myself thinking about how many people quietly carry burdens nobody else can see, children included. As the months passed, the volunteer work expanded. One class became 2, then 3. More students started showing up. Someone donated books. Another volunteer brought supplies. Before long, what had started as a small weekend activity felt like a genuine community. And for the first time since my husband died, I had something that depended on me. Not in a heavy way, not in an overwhelming way, just enough to matter. One afternoon, I was walking back to my apartment after class when a thought appeared so suddenly it stopped me in the middle of the sidewalk. I wasn't waiting for my life to begin anymore. For years, I'd been acting as if life had happened already, as if the important chapters were finished, as if the only thing left to do was manage the time I had remaining. But standing there in the Manila heat, surrounded by noise and traffic and people rushing in every direction, I realized something. This wasn't a retirement story, it was a beginning. And beginnings are supposed to feel uncertain. Not everyone agreed, especially my family. Because around that same time, I made a decision that surprised even me. I signed a 1-year lease. And when my daughter heard about it, she booked a flight to Manila, not for a vacation, to find out what on earth her mother was doing. My daughter arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I was nervous. More nervous than I had been when I landed in Manila myself. Because it's one thing to explain your choices over the phone. It's another thing to have those choices standing in front of you, watching, evaluating, trying to decide whether you've lost your mind. When I met her at the airport, she hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. Then she stepped back, looked me up and down, and said something that made me laugh. "You look different." I asked if that was a good thing or a bad thing. She stared at me for a second, then shrugged. "I haven't decided yet." That was my daughter, always honest. The first few days felt a little like an inspection. Not intentionally, at least I don't think so. But I could see her observing everything. The apartment, the neighborhood, the people I spent time with, the places I went, the way I moved through the city. She wasn't just visiting Manila. She was trying to understand why her mother suddenly wanted to live there. And to be fair, I probably would have done the same thing. One morning, she came with me to the English program. I didn't think much of it, until I saw Sofia run across the room. "Teacher Margaret!" The girl practically launched herself at me. A few of the other students followed, then more. Questions, stories, homework, everyone talking at once. My daughter stood there watching the chaos unfold. I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. After class, we stopped for lunch. Neither of us said much at first. Then she finally asked, "Do they always get that excited when you show up?" I laughed. "Most weeks." She looked out the window for a moment, then back at me. I didn't realize. I knew exactly what she meant. Back home, she had seen me as someone who was alone, someone trying to recover from loss, someone searching for purpose. She hadn't realized I had started finding it. Over the next week, she met Elena, the volunteers, the students, the coffee shop employees who greeted me by name, the security guard outside my building who always asked how my day was going, the restaurant owner who already knew my usual order. Small things, nothing dramatic. But those small things added up. Piece by piece, she started seeing the life I had built. Not a perfect life, not a glamorous life. A real one. The night before she flew home, we sat outside a small restaurant after dinner. The city was quieter than usual. A light rain had cooled the air. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she said something I'll never forget. "You know what surprised me the most?" I asked what. She smiled. "You don't seem lonely anymore." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was she was right. I still miss my husband. I still miss my family. I still had difficult days. Those things hadn't disappeared. But loneliness wasn't running my life anymore. For years, it had been the first thing I felt when I woke up. Now it wasn't even the first thing I thought about. The next morning, I drove her to the airport. We hugged. She cried a little. I cried a little too. Then she looked at me and said something that completely changed how I viewed the future. "Mom, I don't think you're running away anymore." I asked her what she meant. She smiled. "I think you found something worth running toward." After she left, I stood in the airport parking lot for several minutes, not because I was sad, although I was, not because I wanted to leave, because for the first time since arriving in Manila, I realized something important. I wasn't wondering whether I should stay. That question had already been answered. The real question now was what kind of life I wanted to build here, and the answer arrived sooner than I expected. It started with a phone call from Elena, and a problem neither of us knew how to solve. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was halfway through a cup of coffee when Elena's name appeared on my screen. She sounded frustrated, not upset, just tired, the kind of tired that comes from running into the same problem over and over again. Over the previous year, the English program had grown far beyond what anyone expected. What started with a handful of students now had dozens. Some weeks there were so many people that students were sharing chairs. The volunteers were doing their best, but they were running out of space, running out of supplies, running out of time. The demand was growing faster than the program itself, and Elena wasn't sure what to do next. At first, I simply listened. That was all I intended to do. Offer a few suggestions, maybe help organize things. After all, I was retired. I wasn't looking for a new project. I certainly wasn't looking for responsibility. Life has a funny sense of humor sometimes. A week later, I found myself sitting around a plastic table with 6 volunteers discussing budgets, schedules, classroom space, and fundraising ideas. Somewhere along the way, I had accidentally joined the leadership team. To this day, I'm still not entirely sure how it happened. The thing is, I wasn't bringing anything extraordinary to the table. I wasn't a wealthy donor. I wasn't a celebrity. I wasn't even particularly important. What I did have was 40 years of experience solving problems, organizing people, managing projects, keeping things moving, skills I'd spent decades using before retirement, skills I had quietly assumed were no longer useful. It turns out they were, just in a different way. Over the next several months, we expanded. Nothing dramatic, no grand opening, no ribbon cutting, just steady progress. A donated room, additional volunteers, more books, more students, a little improvement here, another improvement there. The sort of growth that rarely makes headlines but changes lives anyway. One Saturday, I arrived early and stood in the doorway watching students file into class. Some carried notebooks, some carried borrowed textbooks. A few carried nothing at all, yet every seat filled within minutes, then every standing space, then the hallway. The hunger to learn was impossible to miss. And standing there, I felt something I hadn't experienced in a very long time. Pride. Not pride in myself, pride in what we were building together. That afternoon, Sofia found me after class. By then she was 13, more confident, more talkative, still serious, but no longer hiding in the back corner. She handed me a piece of paper, a school report. Her English grades had improved dramatically, near the top of her class. I looked up and congratulated her. She smiled. Then she said something I still think about. "Teacher Margaret, before I met you, I didn't think I was good at this." There are moments in life that arrive quietly. No music, no applause, no dramatic speech. Just a simple sentence spoken at exactly the right time. That was one of those moments. Because I realized she wasn't the only one who had been doubting herself. I had spent years believing my useful years were behind me, believing that the important work of my life was already finished, yet here I was, thousands of miles from home, helping build something that didn't exist before. And for the first time since losing my husband, I could see a future that excited me. Then came the storm, and everything we had built was suddenly put to the test. The weather forecast had been warning about it for days. Most people seemed calm, almost suspiciously calm. Whenever I asked someone about the approaching storm, I'd get the same answer. "We'll be okay." Not confident, not careless, just matter of fact, as if difficult weather was simply another part of life. I wasn't nearly as relaxed. Back home, a major storm meant emergency broadcasts, store shelves emptying, people rushing to prepare. The closer the storm got, the more nervous I became. Extra food, extra water, charged batteries, flashlights, backup power banks. I prepared for the worst. At one point, I think I had enough supplies to survive for a month. The neighbors found this hilarious. The rain arrived first, then the wind. By evening, the city felt completely different. Trees bent sideways. Water rushed through the streets. The power flickered repeatedly before finally disappearing altogether. And suddenly the apartment became very quiet. No air conditioning, no television, no internet. Just darkness and the sound of rain hammering against the building. Around 9 o'clock, I heard a knock at the door. For a second, I froze. Then I remembered where I was. When I opened the door, 2 neighbors were standing there holding flashlights. One of them smiled. "Come downstairs." That was the entire explanation. Just 3 words. Come downstairs. The lobby was full. Families, children, elderly residents, people sitting together, talking, sharing food, checking on one another. Somebody had brought snacks. Somebody else had a portable radio. A few children were treating the whole thing like an adventure. The atmosphere wasn't fearful. It was communal. Nobody wanted to sit alone, so nobody did. Hours passed. The storm continued. The power stayed out. Yet nobody seemed particularly interested in retreating behind closed doors. People shared stories, laughed, played cards, passed food around, checked on elderly neighbors, made sure everyone was okay. And sitting there in the middle of it all, I realized something. Back home, I would have spent that entire evening alone. Not because people didn't care. They did. My children cared. My friends cared. My neighbors cared. But everyone lived separate lives, separate schedules, separate worlds. Here, the instincts seemed different. When something happened, people gathered, not because they had to, because that's what they naturally did. The following morning, the rain eased. The city slowly emerged. Branches littered sidewalks. A few businesses remained closed. The power was still out in parts of the area. But what I remember most isn't the damage. It's what happened afterward. Within hours, people were helping each other clean up, sharing tools, sharing supplies, checking on friends, checking on strangers. There was no announcement, no organization, no committee. People simply showed up. A few days later, when classes resumed, nearly every student returned, despite the storm, despite the disruptions, despite everything. And when I walked into the room, the students greeted me exactly the same way they always did, like I belonged there, like I was expected, like my presence mattered. That feeling is difficult to describe, but once you've experienced it, you never forget it. A few months later, Elena and I were reviewing student applications for a scholarship program we hoped to launch. Nothing huge, just enough assistance to help a few students continue their education. As we worked through the applications, one name immediately stood out: Sofia. And what happened next changed both of our lives. When we first reviewed the scholarship applications, Sofia wasn't asking for much. That was the part that got me. Most people imagine life-changing opportunities arriving with grand speeches and dramatic requests. This wasn't like that. Sofia's application was only a few pages long, neat handwriting, carefully organized, every answer thoughtful, every sentence precise. She wasn't asking for someone to rescue her. She was asking for a chance. Her dream was to become a teacher, not a doctor, not a lawyer, not a celebrity, a teacher. When I asked her why, her answer was immediate. Because somebody had helped her. And she wanted to do the same for other children. I remember reading that sentence twice, maybe 3 times. Because there was something beautiful about its simplicity. The scholarship committee eventually selected several students. Sofia was one of them. When we told her, she didn't react the way I expected. No jumping up and down, no screaming, no tears, at least not right away. She just sat there quietly, almost as if she hadn't fully processed what she'd heard. Then she smiled. The same smile I'd seen the day she gave her first confident presentation. Only bigger, brighter, hopeful. Later that afternoon, her mother came to meet us. She thanked everyone individually, the volunteers, the donors, the organizers, anybody who had played a role. Then she turned to me, and before I could stop her, she hugged me. A long hug, the kind people give when words stop being enough. I didn't know what to say, so I hugged her back. That evening, I walked home through the city by myself. The traffic was still there. The noise was still there. The endless movement of Manila continued exactly as it always had. Yet something felt different. Not around me, inside me. Because for years I had been searching for happiness. What I eventually discovered was that happiness wasn't really what I was missing. Purpose was. Purpose had been the missing piece all along. When my husband passed away, I thought an entire chapter of my life had ended. And in many ways it had. What I didn't understand back then was that endings and beginnings often arrive together. You just don't recognize the beginning until much later. You only see the ending, the loss, the empty chair, the silence, the grief. The rest takes time. About 6 months later, Sofia sent me a photograph. She was standing outside her new school, backpack over one shoulder, huge smile, bright future ahead of her. I stared at that photo for a very long time, not because of what it meant for her, because of what it meant for me. It was proof that life had not stopped at 67. It had not stopped when I became a widow. It had not stopped when I boarded that plane. And it certainly hadn't stopped in Manila. In many ways, it had started again. A few weeks after receiving that photo, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop when the young barista who had served me during my first week recognized the picture on my phone. She asked who it was. I told her the story. Everything from the beginning, the trip, the students, the scholarship, the years that followed. When I finished, she smiled and asked a question I wasn't expecting. If you could go back, would you still take the trip? I didn't even need to think about it. My answer came immediately, and it's the same answer I would give today. My answer came immediately. Yes. Without hesitation, without a second thought. Yes. The barista smiled. Then she asked the obvious question. Why? I looked out the window for a moment, watching people move through the afternoon traffic, listening to the familiar sounds of the city, and I realized the answer wasn't what most people expected. It wasn't the lower cost of living. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't the food. It wasn't even Manila itself. The truth was much simpler. I came here because I thought I was looking for a different place to live. What I actually found was a different way to live. There's a difference. A very big difference. One changes your address, the other changes your life. Back home, I spent years waiting to feel better, waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel excited about the future again. I kept assuming something would happen, that eventually the sadness would fade, that eventually life would start moving forward on its own. But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes the next chapter doesn't come looking for you. Sometimes you have to walk toward it, even when you're scared, even when you're uncertain, even when everyone around you thinks you've lost your mind. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that loneliness and being alone are not the same thing. I was surrounded by familiar places when I felt the loneliest. I knew every street, every store, every routine. And yet I felt disconnected from the world around me. Thousands of miles away, in a city where I initially knew nobody, I somehow found the opposite: connection, community, purpose. The things I had been missing all along. That doesn't mean life became perfect. It didn't. I still miss my husband. There are days I miss my children terribly. There are moments when I wish I could sit down with old friends and talk about the life we once shared. There are frustrations here too. Traffic, heat, power outages, bureaucracy. Enough paperwork to test the patience of a saint. Those things are real. But so is everything else. The friendships, the laughter, the students, the feeling of being part of something again. A few months ago, Sofia visited during a school break. She's taller now, more confident, more ambitious. We spent the afternoon talking about her plans for the future, universities, teaching, dreams that once felt impossible. At one point, she looked at me and said something that caught me completely off guard. She said, "Teacher Margaret, I'm glad you came to Manila." Not thank you, not congratulations, just that. I'm glad you came to Manila. I don't think she realized how much those words meant, because the truth is, I'm glad I came too. Not because it solved every problem, not because it erased every loss. Nothing can do that. I'm glad I came because it reminded me that life is not finished simply because one chapter ends. There can be another chapter, another beginning, another version of yourself waiting somewhere you never expected to find it. Sometimes my children still ask if I'll ever move back. I always tell them the same thing. Never say never. Life has surprised me before. It will probably surprise me again. But for now, when I wake up each morning and hear the city outside my window, I know exactly where I want to be. And that feeling took me a very long time to find. The funny thing is, when I boarded that plane at 67 years old, I thought I was traveling to the Philippines. Looking back, I wasn't. Not really. I was traveling toward a version of myself I thought had disappeared. And after all these years, I finally found her.